Hegel writes in paragraph 558 the following: "For the objects of contemplation it has to produce, art requires not only an external given material, under which are also included subjective images and ideas, but, for the expression of spiritual truth, art must use the given forms of nature with a significance which art must understand and make its own. Of all such forms of nature, the human is the highest and the true, because only in it can the spirit have its corporeity and thus its visible expression. This disposes of the principle of the imitation of nature in art, a point on which it is impossible to come to an understanding while a distinction is left thus abstract. In other words, as long as the natural is only taken in its externality, and not as the characteristic, meaningful nature, which is the form that is significant to express the spiritual. So, how to understand this? In paragraph 558, Hegel writes that for art to create objects of contemplation, it requires not only external materials, which include subjective images and ideas, but also the forms of nature. These forms must be imbued with a significance that art must understand and internalize to express spiritual truth. For example, when an artist produces a still life, its elements must have some significance. The choice of fruits or flowers is not simply a random choice. We can see that in classical art, as Hegel calls it, especially in Greek art and the religion that was connected to it. There is one natural form that gets the highest attention. Among all natural forms, the human form is the highest and most true because it uniquely allows the human spirit to manifest itself in a corporeal and visible way. This fact alone challenges the principle of mere imitation of nature in art. In depicting a human body, we are not just mimicking something that we have found in reality. The external form of the human body is not really an object of interest. The human spirit and intellect that is expressed in living humans and is expressed in the image of a human body is of vital interest in Greek art. It is impossible to reach a true understanding if we only consider nature in its external form, without recognizing its characteristic, meaningful nature, which is essential for expressing the spiritual. So art UIs never simply the imitation of natural reality. It idealizes the natural in order to express the spiritual. Hegel writes in paragraph 559 the following: "In such single shapes, the absolute mind cannot be made explicit. In and to art, therefore, the spirit is a limited natural spirit whose implicit universality, when steps are taken to specify its fullness in detail, breaks up into an indeterminate polytheism. With the essential restrictedness of its content, beauty in general goes no further than a penetration of the vision or image by the spiritual principle, that is something formal, so that the thought embodied or the idea can, like the material which it uses to work in, be of the most diverse and unessential kind, and still the work be something beautiful and a work of art." This is my attempt to make the text a little more transparent. In paragraph 559, Hegel explains that the absolute mind cannot be fully expressed in individual forms. Therefore, in art, the spirit is a limited natural spirit. When attempts are made to detail its implicit universality, it fragments into a pantheon of polytheism. The nature of divinity is dispersed over a whole multitude of gods, where each god represents an element of human spirituality. Due to the inherent limitations of its content, beauty in general does not extend beyond the spiritual principle's penetration of the vision or image. This means that the embodied thought or idea and the material used to express it can be diverse and seemingly unimportant, yet still result in something beautiful and a true work of art. The contents does not really matter anymore in romantic art. Let's take a look at some of the key points. 1. Art's requirements. Hegel states that for art to create objects that we can contemplate, it needs more than just external materials. These materials include not only physical objects, but also subjective images and ideas. 2. Expression of spiritual truth. To express spiritual truth, art must use the forms of nature. However, these forms need to be understood and given significance by the artist. 3. Human form is the highest. Among all natural forms, the human form is the most significant. This is because only through the human form can the spirit manifest itself in a physical and visible way. 4. Beyond imitation, Hegel challenges the idea that art should merely imitate nature. He argues that true understanding and expression in art come from recognizing the deeper, meaningful aspects of nature, not just its external appearance. 5. Limitations of individual shapes. Hegel explains that the absolute mind, or the ultimate reality, cannot be fully expressed through individual shapes or forms. 6th, art's limited scope. In art, the spirit is seen as a limited natural spirit. When we try to detail its universal nature, it breaks down into many different forms, leading to what Hegel calls an indeterminate polytheism, a variety of gods or forms. 7. Beauty's restriction. Beauty, according to Hegel, is limited to the extent that it can only penetrate the vision or image with the spiritual principle. This means that the ideas and materials used in art can be diverse and not necessarily essential, yet they can still result in something beautiful and artistic.
Hello, we teach Hegelian philosophy at hegelcourses.com from the Netherlands. Join us and transform your understanding of philosophy. Enroll today.